I understand that Rabbi asked to reach till Ois Daled.
Yeah.
I don't know what he introduction. Straightforward. That's the best way to learn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to give a little introduction because it's interesting to learn the Sicha of Mishpatim Hillary. So I wanna preface to the Sicha a few nekudas that's kedai to understand, and then we'll see it's like Rabbi Aster does, straightforward in the Sicha. So we know that stam current events, for us, we have a chiyuv to try to understand its meaning to us. It's a very, very severe, very strong Rambam. The Rambam says in Bechukoisa, between the klalos, it says in Telchu imi b'chamaskeri afane elech imachem b'chamaskeri. So the Rambam explains that chamaskeri is derech arai, one of the pirushim that Rashi brings when he says that the Eibusher reveals himself to Nevi'e Umasa Olam Bekeri. He says Milashon Arai Mikra. So the Rambam says, if what you see me doing, the Eibusher says, if what you see me doing, you think it's you interpret it as Keri, as a Mikra, as something that just happens. So Afani Elechimachem B'chamas Keri, I'm also gonna respond that way. The Eibusher leaves us up, so to speak, Rahman al-Islam, to fate. Which means a Yid has always had the chiyuv to look at current events and take a hira for himself. How much more so when we're talking about the way the Rebbe introduced to this Sicha, that the world is taking in leaps and bounds toward the Geula, and everything that happens, bifrat, things that stem in the city of Nasi Adar, they're marching in that direction. So we have to see it in that light. Now, I'm just going to mention a very important nekuda, and this speaks to the fact that the inyanim that the Nasi Hadar spoke about and pointed out and discussed, those are the inyanim that we have to look as indicators, as opposed to anything else which we could learn Iran Avodas Hashem, but to say that they schneiden and to decide based on this that this means such and such is already not the same. They say this about gematrias, right? People make gematrias galore. This is gematria that, and that is gematria kugel, and everything could work. When a nasi, a rebbe, says a gematria, it's because that's the way salayich lamayla. It's not just as an indicator lamata. So when the rebbe points out that on this Erev Shabbos of Parshas Mishpatim, they came together and decided to allocate all the money towards ammunition, towards towards peace, and Bechlal eliminate war. And the Rebbe says this is a kiyum of the Yud, that never goes back. We know that a Nevuah L'Teva never goes back. That doesn't retract. As opposed to what we see now, that doesn't take away from the kiyum hayud. And not only that, we don't have what our interpretation of the Metzias is not. I'll just give a very powerful example. That we all know that the Chassidim, the Rebbe was ma'oided when Chassidim, or when the Rebbe, more like it, transformed the niggin of Napoleon's of the French anthem to Hadaras Ve'emunah. And right after that happened, they changed the tune a little bit. After 200 years that this anthem was in use. So in the Hagah of the Sicha, when the Rebbe spoke about it, so they wrote in the Hagah that they changed it, and then they added a little detail over there that's why they changed it and how they're going to change it back. I don't know exactly. And the Rebbe took it out, and the Rebbe wrote, Ein minyaneinu l'saper chadashos. We're not here to tell you news. It's not what we're doing here. Which means that stam zech interessieren what happens in the world and what current events are important for us to take around Avodas Hashem, but you have to make like a lahavdil. When the Rebbe tells us that this is what's going on and this is a kiyum of a yud, it's not a small thing, and this never goes back. So I'm just saying that on the backdrop of what's happening now, we have to know that this doesn't take away the kihu zeh when we see a nevuah marching forward and the Rebbe interpreting a metzias the way we may see any sort of metzias, even though we should learn haras and Avodas Hashem. So having said all that, let's move straight into Ois Dalet. Let's see if I find my way around here. 38. Oh, here we are. Okay. V'yesh l'kasha zeh. All this that was described as this meeting of great governments and this decision and the achraz of in the building that it has it inscribed on the wall, and this was decided as the Rebbe put forth because the Nasi Adar was Kaveh Meshava here, as they described in the introduction, that decision waited until after Tafshin Yud. Says the Rebbe, let's connect all this to the parsha. Parshas Mishpatim, that the pasuk says ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lefneihem, and Rashi is bothered. It says these are the statutes that you should put before. These are the laws you should put before them. So Rashi says, what's the ve'ela? Vav is moisif al rishonos. Every time there's a vav, it's a vav achibur. So what is this connecting to before? The parsha before it was Parshas Yisro. It was discussing Har Sinai. Doctor, Ma Rishonim Sinai Af Elu B'Seder. One would think that all the dinim of Parshas Mishpatim, one can come to that understanding on his own. It's pretty logical, very straightforward. It's monetary issues that could be discussed in any court, and anybody could come to a compromise or come to conclusions such as Torah Lahavdil. Says the Torah Ve'ele. You should know that these Mishpatim are moisif al rishonim. This is directly back to Sinai. Av ma rishonim is Sinai, just as all the halachas that were described in the whole Matan Torah described in Parshas Yisro were from Har Sinai. Av elu, everything following in this parsha also is Misinai, and that's why there's a vav achibur ve'ela mishpatim. It connects it to the parsha before. What is the pshat? Asher tasim lefneihem zok Rashi lefneihem v'loy lefnei goyim. When you come to judge, you have to go to Yiddish court. Even if you know that in specific laws the goyim are going to come to the same conclusion as the Yid, so let's just have it a stronger stempel. If we go to a secular court and they'll establish what the Chacham 2-3 dayanim sitting in a basin could establish, but this way it's going to be recognized by everybody. Even if you see them coming to the same decision, still, al to be ilber kai shalom, one should not bring it to basin. So how does the Rebbe want to connect this to the current events? Dr. Rebbe, Tochna shel Parshas Mishpatim, the content of Parshas Mishpatim is kishma, as its name, dinim shebein adam l'chaverei. They're in between people, social dinim. Shechiyuv moving b'seichel adam. One can understand it in a regular human capacity of his mind. He can understand davar dvarim amurim b'Torah b'mishpat she'il lo yonamru hayu kedai lamrin. If Torah wouldn't have said it, we would have understood it on our own. And let me take it a step further. Even though Torah says it, the Torah obligates from Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, goyim should establish courts and they should come to the same maskanas, not because of Torah. This is what logic demands. Torah shleim will come to the same maskana. Still, that even if Torah, that brings us as an example, that if Torah wasn't given, many of the rules of tznius we would have learned even from Balei Chaim, from nature itself. This would be understood even in a secular mind. As Rashi describes, there may even be din that they'll come to the same verdict as Beis Din Lahav, that will come to a psak din. So even though this can still happen in Mishpatim, the Torah comes to tell us, no, you should know that Af Elu Misinim. When Torah paskins, this is directly back to Atzmos given to Am Yisrael through Moshe. This Vav is telling us, connecting it to the parsha before, Af Elu Misinai. Shegam HaMishpatim Shechiyuv HaMuvim B'Seichel HaAdam. Even the halachas, the laws that are understood in our basic mind, even though the Eibusha says you should understand, you should do it because I said. So why do we need to learn Torah? Just what should we do? We'll do it. Why do we need the whole Gemara Mishnayos? So because the Eibusha wants it should come down in our seichel. The Rebbe is going to say a Morid Kevart. This is really Pashto Pshat and Rashi. Umishum zet tasim gama mishpatim lefneim for Beis, because the Eibusha wants you to come through a seichel. The Eibusha wants you to come to this decision through seichel, but wants you to come to this decision because the Eibusha said to come to the decision. Again, The Eibishter wants it to come through Seichel, but the Eibishter wants it should be done through Seichel because the Eibishter said, not because someone's sitting one foot on the other foot and trachts of Torch, and he came to Maskana that this is what it should be done. It should be done. A Yid has a chiv of Torah, sat down, learned and understood and paskent. It's not just Seichel Glat, even though the Sarah could be the same from both of them. Sorry. Now the Rebbe is going to take it a step deeper, and we'll see how the Rebbe is going to connect it back to the current events. Ve'ela mishpatim. When we said ve'ela mishpatim, af elu misinai, yesh loimer. The Rebbe is going to see a deeper pirush. Shegam asiba lechiyuv hasichli de mishpatim hu misinai. You should know. Sometimes you look at a Yiddish court decided A, and the guy a Yiddish base decided A. A Goyish court. So they both reached from two different perspectives. They reached from Torah. They had a chiv of Torah. They were ma'ayin based on Paiskim, and they sat ein fusavat tzveita smoking, and they came to the same maskan. Two different ways to get to the same. Says the Rebbe. No, you should know the reason why it makes sense in Seichel is because af elu Sinai. Because the goal of Sinai is to come all the way down into Seichel. That's why they understand what they understand. Don't say I could have reached it the other way. If there wouldn't have been Torah, they wouldn't understand it that way. Right? There was a Murder Gemaisa the Rabbi Chaver said, it's wrong. It's just his yard. It's at Yudalef other. Rabbi Chaver said that there was he got a letter, and they demanded a certain tax of him for something. And the Rabbi Chaver looked at it and thought, and then he said, according to the Maskan and Yerushalmi, I don't have to pay this. And he got a letter afterwards that it was a mistake. I'm sorry, it didn't need to happen. Pshat is there was a svara. It could be. The fact is that the reason they understood it was because Azay Kum Misina Elamai. We get trapped in, and here's the nakud of this sicha. We see the world, we take it at face value, and we say, because this is what's going on now, what does Torah tell us to respond? We don't look at it like Torah set up the whole matziv and is indicating to us that there's a kiyum anavu, and therefore the world is changing, and these are the birth pangs, and the world is coming out of the shell. We don't look at it. We look at the world as the mitzvah. And Torah, what does Torah add to this mitzvah? The rabbis tell the Yimoisa Mashiach. You know how Yimoisa Mashiach looks. The Eibishter is not concealed anymore. You see through the mitzvahs of Gashmias. You see what the Eibishter's plan was. The Rebbe is giving us a window into this. Regardless of what's happening now, we have to look at the world. This is where the world is holding. The Rebbe gave us a glimpse into where the world is holding now. And now, from now on, the fact, and the Rebbe gave a nation power, how much they could conquer, how much they could fight, and how much they exercise that ability. Today, it's by commerce power, politics, discussing, manipulating. That itself is extremely novel. But we say, no, Goy verstanden. No, the guy doesn't understand. The guy teva tiva. This is because Torah now misinai. The Eila Mishpatim Ashatasim Lefneim. The reason why Seichel makes sense, Seichel dictates, and the Goyish court gave this verdict. And Bimela, being that the world, the Eibishter says we're holding at a matzav lo yikanafod merecha. That's why it could be a simple svar. Everybody understands that someone that's violent, everybody looks at that is downcast. Kind of doesn't have a place. It's nishke mensch. Everyone makes sense. Will make sanctions. Why? Forget. This is how you get power. No, the whole world versteht das. Why versteht das? Because af elu misinai. This is the chiddush Rebbe is adding. That Mari, you should know that these mishpatim af elu misinai, the fatpshat, these halachas they also have a psuk kedusha, even though they make sense. The reason they make sense is from Sinai. Look there. Yes, loimer pirusha shegam asiba lachiyud hasichli the mishpatim. The fact that the chiyuv of mishpatim is misinai, the Eibishter demands and requires we understand. Veluli nisinas misinai lo yaseichel ha'adam mechayvim. If there wouldn't be this hayra lav dafka, this would seichel wouldn't understand it or wouldn't come to that maskana. K'may rishonim, just like the mitzvahs that we beferish don't understand. Shachiv asichli, The fact that Seichel is Machayev who Ketoitzam Mizesha B'tzivuim Eilen Islamish Ritzoinish LaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why does Seichel say that this is the right way to go about things? Why does it make sense today that everybody should be supporting a third world country? That makes absolutely, if you go into a mind of someone from the medieval times, a government should spend millions of America going into trillions. A third world country, people in Africa don't have what to eat. That makes absolutely no sense. I'm saying today it makes sense. Then it doesn't make sense. Your power, you're fighting your own battle to keep yourself afloat. You have to show you're the mightiest. Doesn't make sense. The reason why it makes sense is because being that the Eibishter says that this is the Gila Lakos in the world has reached this far, and they're able, and the Eibishter is shleimus of everything, so it's not just going to be dictated to us, it's also going to be shleimus of and run their lives up Pisa. And we have to appreciate that some of the maskanas that we have are godly, are getlich. Because we're in this time, we just take it for granted, right? We have us chiseling at over here. They was fighting for our little peanuts, right? The Eibishter wants us to look different. The Eibishter the Rebbe is fighting us to understand and to look and to approach to the reason we understand. The reason the world understands is like, Zakta. The Kiman Shatar Difterois Upinkesais, being that the Torah is Difterois Upinkesais, it's basically the blueprint for creation and the plans. Shabam Nivra Olam, Nasu Dvar Ma'ela Mechuyav Begidre Olam. It becomes a self-understood in the world logic. B'meila gam b'seichel adam, bad l'seichel u'mas ha'olam, shadaita noita l'dvarim sh'mechuyavim mitzat chachmasa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah, that all of a sudden you'll see the world coming to the same maskana as Torah. It's not because they got smarter. It's because the Eibishter let it be revealed closer, deeper in the world, and therefore Seichel already is able to reach it. It's not that they didn't get smarter; it's that Seichel became more refined. Now that I was taking us that further, that according to this we can explain. This was the pshat that Rebbe explained in Af Elu Sinai, that even their maskanas come from Sinai. Now that I'm saying even weiter, the ve'ela moisif al rishonim. When it comes down in Seichel, it adds more than when it was concealed, because this is the goal. It's a hoisafa, and it's a real addition, not only worth mentioning, but really valuable when we actually are able to come to something from our own understanding as Seichel, because the goal of Matan Torah of Misina was Shabbat La Gzeira v'Hafzeh bin Yonim L'Tachtonim, from the upper and below worlds below. Shachmas LaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is considered Al Yonim. Tumshach v'Tachder Gam b'Seichel Adam. It should penetrate and fill our understanding, and that is a step even beyond. So basically, what the nuance the Rebbe is adding here is, you would have thought, okay, if the Eibishter wouldn't have given Mishpatim, so it would be even better. We would just be doing only because the Eibishter said, and the guy wouldn't come to maskana. No, the fact that we're able to come to such maskanas, and certain things are self-understood today, b'derech memela, things that are aligned with Getlichkeit, that is a giluyach. It's a chiddush in the world. It's not, the world has become more refined, and it's closer to the goal, because the Eibishter from Har Sinai set out that this is where we're heading. He wanted to be able to come into this world, not just to be here, but to be but at home. And at home means that he feels natural here, that we understand and we relate to him in a natural way. And it's so natural to us that we don't see what's the chiddush. We don't. They tilt and understand. When we come to the maskana, we have to stop and come here and stop and notice that the reason we understand these things is because Misinai. Because if we don't realize it's the Eibishter, so we have fine hanachas. So it's an edler guy than a grabber guy, because he was more refined. But it doesn't make a yid walk around and see Elokus, like Kanafay Merachu. What are the demands that we live in, my Mashiach? That's the avoida. The Indians that is gam etzel bnei etzel umasa oil meragel kima mitzvah bnei noyach. And every point, this is not only by Yidden, also by bnei noyach. They should start accepting she'afadas noitelahen, even things that the das night that sashi kabbalos and yasas and shetziva behena kadosh baruch hu b'Torah. Anything even a goy does he has to accept it upon himself because that's what the Eibush did. The Sheva Mitzvahs b'nei Noach have to be accepted. It's not enough of a goy. It's very interesting. The Rambam mentions this. He's from the Poskim in regard to the Sheva Mitzvahs b'nei Noach that a goy that accepts these mitzvahs, a ger toishav, has to accept it because the Eibush said. If a guy says, I'm just a nice guy, I'm not going to kill, I'm not going to steal, doesn't do it because the Eibush said, it's not the Sheva Mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Even more than that, it's even nirgash by us. There's one mitzvah that we had before Matan Torah, which is lachnisa b'brisa shel Avraham Avinu. It's a bris of the it's a bris of Avraham Avinu. We call the brisa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Afal Pikein, the Rambam makes sure that when a person makes a bris, he has to think that he's making the bris because the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu to make a bris in resemblance to Avraham Avinu's bris, but not directly from Avraham Avinu. It has to be always because the Eibishter said. And therefore, we have to stop and notice that the refined world we're in is because the Eibishter is being revealed here. And without that realization, so we're missing a critical component, and that's the Sicha here. Don't look at it, this guy, the Russian prime minister and the American prime minister, they decided. Okay, the ultimate, I skipped. If a guy accepted because that's the way his mind understands, he's not only mechsidi umas ha'olam that he didn't accept Shev Mitzvahs, but he's also not mechachmeim, because the real seichel is rooted in Getlichkeit. Is in God's. Obviously, the ultimate completion of this will be when in the era when Mashiach is completely revealed and the world, the lights flicks on. All will be only about knowing the Eibishter and considering the Eibishter. Knowing the Ma'aser Merkava and Iker and Yana of Sinai, Nimshechas v'choderes b'seichel Adam. That's the goal. Okay, 1 second. So let me just blow out this again.
27.
Oh, okay. So I'll give a sneak preview then. The Nakuda the Rebbe added, the Isaf of this ice and a half is Aleph, that the Rebbe connected it to the Parsha by pointing out Ve'ela Mishpatim, that even though the Seichel comes from Sinai, and then the Rebbe took it 2 steps forward. One, the first Chiddush the Rebbe said is the fact that Seichel understands it is because of Sinai. Okay, note, this is the Rebbe's Chiddush. The fact that Seichel understands it is because the Eibishter revealed it, and if he wouldn't have, they would have understood otherwise. So you should nafsham b'em tisatav. You should see through the shell. The second thing is that elu moisif al rishonis. You should know that when it comes into Seichel, it's an addition. It's a chiddush. Even legabe Matan Torah. You think Matan Torah was great. This is even greater because the goal of Matan Torah was to penetrate into this world. And b'meila elu moisif al rishonis. When it comes into Seichel, it's a real haisafa. And you can understand how the simcha, how a yid that wears the Rebbe's glasses and takes on what the Rebbe is describing to us really going on, the real gematria, how a yid has to look. That the fact that the world understands these things brings a huge simcha. The Elokus is being revealed. The Rebbe connected it already to the beginning of the parsha. Now the Rebbe is going to connect it to the Sefer of the parsha. And I'm going to say it, I think, outside, because I understood that when Rabbi Aster comes back, he's going to continue the next Sefer. I'll say this Nakuda. It's a half an hour, right? Yeah. So the end of the parsha is very interesting. The end of the parsha, it says that Atzil Bnei Yisrael went up and they looked at the Eibishter, Vayechlu Vayishtu, which is brought in a very negative light. It says that Atzil is the young Kohanim, and the Eibishter, they went, they so to speak, they saw Gila Elokus and they ate and drank in the same time. It doesn't say what happened to them then, but they were paid back afterwards when there was the story of the Slav Dachtzach. So it says Vayercha b'ktzei hamachna. So it says what's ktzei hamachna b'ktzine hamachna. Those that were the high ranking which was the Eibishter b'shas chedva, so the Eibishter didn't want to. So it says, what did they see when they saw the Eibishter? It says, v'tachas raglov k'maisa livnas asaper. They saw under the Eibishter's feet a brick of sapphire, of clear diamond, and and Rashi explains that the Eibishter was indicating what the reason the Eibishter revealed himself that way was to show them that in the time that they were working on mortar and brick in Mitzrayim, the Eibishter was with them. With him, he had a brick. What that means, again, is like the story of there were souls and there were shich and atzilus from after Simchas Teda. How bricks, that the Eibishter had a brick to show them. So that's the end of the parasha. And the Rebbe points out that let's read it inside. This is the story. Now it's going to go Gishmer. The Yesh Leimer she'inyin zeh merumas b'sima parsha. This concept of af elu misina and oisafom elu moisvel rishonos, that it's a greater impact and a greater completion and uftu of Har Sinai when it comes into Seichel. We'll see it at the end of the parsha that it says vayiru es elokei Yisrael. They saw Yiddish God v'tachas raglov k'maisa livnas hasaper, like this stone from this brick from sapphire. They saw the Eibishter and they ate and drank. Which that's a Sinai came down. The Rebbe says the pnimistic pshat of what happened there was that they saw they brought it into their digestion system. They were able to bring it all the way down. And that's the greatness of Har Sinai. That's the completion of the parsha. Obviously, there was something negative with what they did. But in terms of the parsha being a parsha dedicated to Matan Torah, this also has to be, the parsha has to conclude on the message of Matan Torah. And the Rebbe says the conclusion of Matan Torah and the pinnacle of Matan Torah is when v'yechzos l'kim v'yechlu v'yishtu. They bring it into their damo shnasa damo basa gibsara. They live in the pnimis atayra ba'ifin shel havana basagi isparnason b'toich chassidus Chabad koil gama idea targum v'yechzos targum shel re'iyah. That brings that they translate Tanya in the coming seifim. But this is all a kiyum of the Hagdama to Oz Epech La'amim Safa. That everybody's going to recognize the Eibishter. We think, how does everyone recognize the Eibishter? It's a process. The Rambam describes this process in Hilchos Melech HaMashiach in the end, and he says Yashka and Muhammad, he calls him Oisem Meshuga. He says this is all part Liyasha Derech Melech HaMashiach, because people started living with belief. And then when the real belief, when the Amunah Amitis is revealed, they're kalim to understand, right? So we have to be able to see through the process. That's what the Rebbe's hitting at, is that we have to look at the process and see the bigger picture, and not say this is the Metzius in front of us. And the Rebbe says when the world comes to a point where they're mamish ready to declare, we're dropping war, we're going to invest, for a Yid not to look at it that way is a pesha. And like they titled this, seeing the signs is a science. You have to see it as part of where the world is now working with. These are the basics the world is working with, and we have to appreciate the world for where they're at and teach the world a step weiter by us recognizing that it's Misinai, by us noticing it's the Eibishter, and that's the lo yikana for merachel alasid b'shleim mistake of miyan mamish. Okay.
The Ramban. He says, what's the whole reason?